Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Bastian Roundtable. We've got an exciting group with us today here as we've got 3 staff members from Lion here to talk about what it's like to work at Lion, how the organization is continuing to push towards a culture of inclusion and diversity, and how the business is looking for the next generation of future leaders in supply chain. Before we get into our chat, I just wanted to quickly introduce our guests. Start off with Nicola Kay. Nicola is based in Auckland. She's currently the Network Technical and Performance Leader for Craft Brewing at Lion. She's worked in the brewing industry for 23 years this September, she's told me. And this is her 3rd time actually being employed at Lion, spanning a total of 18 years of service. She's got a bachelor's degree in food science from the University of Otago and a master's of business and technology from the University of New South Wales. Secondly, we got Gizelle Bournival who's originally from Venezuela. She's based in Sydney and she works out of the Tui's Brewery. She's currently packaging team leader for Lion. She's been with the business for just over 4 years now. She's got a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, and I'm going to mess this up, so excuse the pronunciation. Universidad del Zulia.
That's perfect.
I tried. And a PhD in chemical engineering from the University of Newcastle. And lastly, but not least, we've got Katharine Davidson, who's also based in Sydney. She's currently the talent acquisition lead for supply chain at Lion. She's been with the business for almost 6 years now. She's originally from the UK. And she's got a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Liverpool. So great group with us today. Why this topic? Well, we've recently, Bastian Consulting and Lion have started a program in partnership around trying to identify the next wave of future leaders in supply chain across ANZ. And we thought it'd be helpful not only for potential applicants, but just for our network as well, to try to get a bit of understanding from direct employees, what it's like to work at Lion. So what it's like there, how have they built their own careers at Lion, benefits for working at Lion, current potential development opportunities, and a little bit of information around policies and cultural initiatives promoted by Lion to bring a better work-life balance. Because I think that's really important for a lot of professionals, especially the world we live in now. I think people are really seeking and trying to find organizations that bring that balance, that it's not just about work, it's about work and family and a balance between both. Lion is committed to creating and maintaining an inclusive and diverse culture that welcomes everyone into the business. And what better way to promote that, to hear it directly from the staff who live and breathe it every day. So yeah, thanks again, everyone, and appreciate you coming on. So with us, let's talk to our guests. So Nicola, let's start with you. You've been with the business for a long time now, a number of different roles. Tell us a little bit about your current role and how important leadership and mentoring is to you.
Sure. Well, welcome everyone. So my current role would describe as business partnering from a technical perspective. So I support all of our smaller breweries across Australia and New Zealand. So the likes of Emerson's and Panhead, Malt Shovel, and then the smaller ones along the lines of Little Creatures and Umundi and things like that. So from my point of view, in terms of leadership, I think my journey prior to this role, I had been leading people for probably close to a decade. And so stepping into this role has been a really interesting journey in learning how to partner people when they don't actually report to you. So they don't have to actually listen to you, but you need to influence them and get them to see what you're selling basically and agree that it's a good idea. So I think it's been a really interesting journey and sort of probably rounding out my leadership. Instead of sort of formal leadership, it's more realizing leadership is more than just being someone's manager. It's actually about, thought leadership. It's about, technical leadership. There's so many aspects, which I guess probably then builds on to the whole mentoring piece. So because I wasn't leading people anymore, it felt like a gap in what I was doing. And I really love coaching people and I love seeing people develop. So one wise HR person said to me, well, it's like instead of being the parent now, you're the grandparent. So you can have all the fun and none of the responsibility. So that's how I kind of view mentoring. It's all the good bits. So yeah, I mentor a number of people through our craft network, and I've really enjoyed that because you get to look at things in a really holistic way, help people out, but then you know, if things go wrong, they've got a manager that can deal with the tough, crunchy stuff. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
That's the best analogy about mentoring that
I
I've heard.
know.
I'm going to reuse that one.
That's why I was just thinking that. I'm like, I've never heard the grandparent analogy. No, you get all the fun, but no discipline. That's, yeah, I'm definitely stealing that one.
Yeah.
So, and like Gizelle, let's pass it to you. You come from more of a research background and now moved into, operational manufacturing. What's that experience been like for you? And how has Lion provided a pathway for you to use some of your skills and transfer them into different departments?
Yeah, so obviously working in research is totally different to working in manufacturing. So I did a PhD, so that took me 4 years and 4 months, long time. But it's all about skills and the way you transfer them from one field to another. So for example, in research, it's all about finding a gap in knowledge, being able to present something that is new and fresh and that no one has done before. So that has helped me at Lion identifying a number of opportunities for improvement and acting upon them. Another important thing that I've developed over the years is scientific thinking. So really thinking on your process and changing or testing one variable at the time and having a look, was it what you expected or not? And then what are my next steps after that? And that's actually a tool that we use in manufacturing for everyday improvement. So it just transferred so well. Another thing, as Nicola was mentioning, is coaching and mentoring, which is really, really important at Lion. I did a lot of that during my research years, because as a researcher, you become specialized in a field. And so I took a lot of other researchers and students as well in the journey in the area I was working on. And that has shaped the leader I am today at Lion. So it's all about skills you gain along the way and how you can apply them and transfer them. So if you're a person that is at the moment doing a science degree or design or whatever, I could encourage you to be open and be curious and looking for opportunities and where you could be applying those skills you have now into your next career move.
Nice. So look, it's interesting because I've been in recruitment for 11 years now, and either my mind is playing tricks on me as I get older, or I do remember a time when I first got into it where companies were more open to transferable skills, and it feels like organizations are a lot more prescriptive now in terms of you have to hit A to Z criteria, otherwise you're not a perfect fit. And so it's nice to hear organizations that are looking at transferable skills, because brewing as an industry is very specialized, right? And so, naturally, if you're only looking for people with direct brewing experience or brewing industry experience, it can be narrow your pool of talent to source from. So that's fantastic to hear. Katharine, tell us a little bit about what working at Lion has been like for you, and how does the business include diversity in everything they do?
Yeah, so I've been at Lion, as you mentioned, for coming up to 6 years. I joined as a talent business partner working with our corporate functions. Then I spent about 18 months leading our redeployment and career transition program, and I've been in a talent acquisition leader role for the last 3 years. And my biggest focus in that role has been working with supply chain, which has been fantastic because I had no idea what it was like working in manufacturing before I joined Lion. And it's been a real eye-opener, and I've met some fantastic people working with this space. So now it'd be a tough gig if I had to go back to the corporate function. It's nowhere near as fun. But interesting what you say there about the prescriptiveness, because when I was thinking about what's changed purely from the day-to-day view of a talent acquisition team, is I feel like the conversations at Lion have gone the opposite way to what you just said. So a lot of briefs when I first started was, we need somebody who's got FMCG experience or food and beverage experience, or they've done the same role in a similar organization. And so that was our approach. We'd go out and we'd have the list of companies and we'd search for people with similar role titles. Whereas now, where those conversations are, and there's obviously sometimes those conversations do still happen, but there's a lot more about, well, what are the opportunities to bring in new and different perspectives? What are the transferable skills? What can they add to the culture versus how will they fit into the culture? And that's not happened overnight, and it's an ongoing journey for us as well to keep building on that. And then we've done, in line to that, we've also changed how we advertise, so that to ensure our language is inclusive, it'll resonate with a broader audience. You don't have to tick these 10 requirements to come work for us in this role. We've changed how we have salary conversations with candidates, because early on in my time with Lion, we identified we had a gender pay gap, so we took corrective action, and then that's been a focus of our talent acquisition team ever since, to make sure that that gap doesn't reopen. And then the other piece is really about building capability in our leaders. So from a talent acquisition perspective, it's making people aware of their biases, and while you can never eliminate them, what can we do to mitigate the impact of them in decision making, and how can we increase objectivity of our assessments? So from a TA perspective, I think there's been some great evolution in my time in the organization, but we've still got some aspirational goals to achieve there, and it's a continued focus for us. We're certainly not sitting on our laurels and going, we've ticked the I&D box. It's definitely a work in progress for us across Lion.
Well, I think the fact that you're even having those discussions is certainly future thinking or forward thinking compared to a lot of organizations. And again, I'm not here to point the finger at other businesses, but given the role we play in talent acquisition and supply chain primarily, there's not a lot of firms or businesses that we talk to who are having those types of conversations. So it's definitely refreshing to hear. Nicola, I'll bring it back to you. So we're talking about this focus around bringing the next wave of future leaders in supply chain, and specifically targeting professionals or people who have thought about getting into the brewing industry. How would you describe the balance between technical and business partnering of your role, and what it's also like to move into this industry, which is niche in comparison to others?
Yeah, so I'd say my current role, the technical aspect, I always feel like, even though I've been in the industry for over 20 years, there's always someone who knows more than I know about any given thing. So I find I partner with other people who are even more specialist than me. So I feel like no matter what your technical skills, as long as you've got the right language and the right questioning tactics, that you don't necessarily need to know it all yourself. So I kind of feel like, that's one aspect, whereas the business partnering bit is the bit that really matters, because if you can't form good relationships, you haven't got people's trust, you're not going to get anywhere in a business partnering situation. So that's really, I'd say, the bigger focus for me, even though when you look at my role title, it sounds very technically oriented. But that I'm going to succeed through my partnerships, not through my technical knowledge, is probably the conclusion I've come to.
Sure. And look, just as a side question, you've been in the industry for 23 plus years in September, as we mentioned before. Is it something about the brewing industry that you love, or that you have a passion for? What is it that's how did you stick around for so long?
For so long, well, I think as a bit of a science geek, brewing's really interesting because it's got a living organism with yeast. It's got natural raw materials that are variable, so there's a lot of skill to making beer. And I think there's so many aspects to learn about. So I think even though I've been in the industry so long, I'm still learning. So I think that's probably initially what got me into the industry. In terms of what's kept me here, I think, Lion's got a really constructive culture. When I first joined 20 odd years ago, it was one of the first companies to look at behaviors as well as results. So there was, for a long time, we've had the language to give each other feedback, to build constructive culture. I think we're very progressive in that space, whereas now I'd say most companies have that. But my experience of going to the UK sort of 10 years ago and working for a company that didn't have that, and I was kind of like, oh, is this what the real world's like outside Lion, where people actually shout at each other rather than actually sit down and have a constructive conversation? So I think that's part of what's kept me in the industry.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Oh, that's a great answer. Gizelle, I'll pass it to you. So Australia, I mean, just from my perspective, we get myself and Bastian Consulting, we get approached all the time on a constant daily basis about foreign talent coming into Australia and New Zealand. You know, Australia and New Zealand are globally sought after employment markets. And I know that overseas talent or talent that's not born here in Australia or New Zealand can at times find it difficult to find the right role based on the credentials or experience they have in different markets. And I'm going to use quotation marks here. Local experience is sometimes sought after by local employers here, which for me, having spent some time in Singapore and other markets, I find it a little bit behind, to be perfectly honest, Australia specifically. But you, as an example, have obviously some accreditation and work experience not in Australia, and then have come here. I'd just like to get a bit of an understanding around what your journey was like joining Lion and how they valued your accreditation and skills, even though they weren't you weren't trained here or hadn't worked here locally previously.
Yeah, sure. I think Lion has been doing a lot of work for a number of years in, bringing to life that vision of having a really inclusive and diverse team.
Mm-hmm.
When I mean diversity is, different cultures and backgrounds and experiences. So when I interviewed for them almost 5 years ago, the team was really impressed with my achievements in manufacturing excellence and continuous improvement.
Yep.
And they looked beyond the fact that they were at a different industry. So I was coming from petrochemicals, gas and oil industry, and in a different country, my home country in Venezuela.
Yep.
So they look beyond that and they focus on the achievements in that field.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I look at it, like a process is a process, even though you could be producing one of our delicious beers here in Sydney, or you could be producing a functional polymer in Venezuela. You are always going to use the same tools to be able to improve that process, to deliver value for your customers, to reduce costs and waste, eliminate waste, and improve quality. So it's pretty much basically the same techniques and tools that you use. Another factor that helped me a lot was I was very fortunate to have as my first leader at Lion, a person that really focused on those different ideas and thoughts that I had and helped me leveraging those, because I think a business has nothing on bringing talent on board that is different, right? If you don't include them into a picture. So we work really hard to how am I going to use those different skills and thoughts into my here and now, and that has helped me. That has set me up for success at Lion. So I started working as an analyst in continuous improvement. Then I work as a coach, and now I'm a frontline team leader for one of the biggest breweries, Twist Brewery. So yeah, that shows you how, having confidence on, those skills and that knowledge that could be coming from a different industry or from a different country, but being able to apply that to your here now can go a long way.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, I think that's a great answer. Again, just as a side note from my perspective, I see, I don't know how many, misplaced staff in supply chain based on foreign credentials or non-Australian university credentials I see on a daily basis. So it's nice to see examples where they're actually valuing that experience rather than making it as a negative. So yeah, that's really great. Katharine, let's talk about policies and initiatives at Lion and some of the things they're putting in place for further enhance a culture of inclusion and bringing that balance the employees are after. Can you share with us a couple examples that you're currently working on?
Yeah, definitely. So from a policies perspective, probably the two big ones are our Families at Lion policy, which we revised and relaunched last year, and our co-flex policy. So from my time at Lion, I think it's always been a place where you're encouraged to bring your authentic self to work and, bring your whole self and not just have it separate and your family's over here. So I think that's always been a part of our culture. But what the amendments to that policy has done is given equal access to both parents to parental leave for primary and secondary carers. We've also made it available to team members from day one of their employment, so you don't have to no waiting periods. We've started a partnership with Parents at Work to provide additional support to parents both before, during, and after parental leave. So that we can really set people up for success in what is, you know, a massive transition in your life. So there's a lot of support in that space. The second kind of policy would be our co-flex policy, which is really about finding a three-way win for the team, the business, and the individual. We are a company whose purpose is sociability and well-being. So we're never going to be a full remote workforce, which is great, but we want to make sure that we look at everybody's as an individual and give them the opportunity to make that three-way win work. I don't know. And then probably the other one, probably our biggest kind of focus at the moment is a lot about building capability across our organization to make sure that everybody in the team, whether you're a people leader or an individual contributor, you're really clear on how, you know, what's your role in contributing to an inclusive environment for everybody. And, you know, and what's, how do we do that as people leaders? How do we do that as individuals? So we've got some really clear expectations. So yeah, that's a big focus for us at the moment across the organization, and not just there's specific kind of capability as part of our reconciliation action plan in terms of building awareness, but also that just day to day, how do we work and how do we value and respect everybody in the workplace.
Yeah, fantastic. Nicola, I know we've spoken about this offline. What was your experience? Can you share with the group your experience around the Lions Families at Work policy and how that's helped you in your home life as well?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I've got a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old at home. Well, not always at home, but so for me, I work flexibly. So I work from 6:30 to 2:30 each day so that I can pick my kids up from school. And I definitely say the culture and definitely over the last year with COVID and people realizing that flexibility works, you can work anywhere and you can get your job done. So I've been supported for a long time, but I feel like last year there was even more engagement as everyone started realizing, yeah, I'm not just having the day off when I'm working at home. So I'd say, yeah, there's a good culture of get the job done, work the hours you need to work. Yeah, and that's really worked for me for balancing.
Yeah, great. And Gizelle, I also wanted to hear from you. You had some recent experience around the flexibility element at Line. Can you share that with us as well?
Yeah, sure. So I have a 2-year-old. I came back from maternity leave when she was about 9 months, but I wasn't quite ready to go into a full-time position. So Lion offered me an amazing opportunity, which was like a development opportunity as well. But from that one, I could work from home. I started doing like 3 days a week, coming to a brewery and working from home. And then when I was ready, 9 months later, I increased to, okay, I'm going to work 4 days now. And then 3 months later, I started on this role, which is a front leadership role. It's a bit trickier to kind of find flexibility on those because you have set times, you start of a shift, end of a shift. However, I'm only working 4 days. So instead of 5 days, I work part-time, and that works fantastic for me. Like I can spend the day at home with my little one, but it has also provided an opportunity for someone else here in the business who is a young graduate and is learning my role and is actually doing an amazing job with it. So, yeah.
Well, look, those, again, great examples. And I think those are really nice to hear, just, from a human side, that people have that ability to take care of what's important at home, but still not lose the seniority or the impact their role or of their spot in the business. So look, that's great. So look, that'll probably wrap us up today for today's session of the Bastian Roundtable. And it's been a joy having all of 3 of you come on and talk about Line and the business's keen interest in finding those future leaders in supply chain. So thanks again, everyone, for taking the time to watch. We'd love to hear your comments and feedback. If you can leave them in the comment section below. And have a great day, everyone. Take care. Cheers.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you.